Today we're going to talk about matrix multiplication. The first thing we have to do is look at the matrices that we're trying to multiply to see if we're actually able to multiply those two matrices together. The way we do that is by deciding the number of rows and columns that each matrix will have. So if I look at this first matrix, I have 3, 1, 5 in the top row, 4, 2, 6 in the second row. So that's 2 rows by 1, 2, 3 columns, because 3, 4, 1, 2, and 5, 6, they each are their own column. So that first matrix is a 2 by 3. When I look at the second matrix, I have 3 rows, and then I have 1 single column. So if I am able to multiply matrices together, what needs to happen is those middle 2 numbers would have to match. So this 3 in the first matrix would match with this 3 in the second matrix. So because those match, I know that I can multiply. And I know that my answer will be a 2 by 1 matrix. Okay. So now that I know I can multiply, let's think about how we're going to do that. We need to multiply each row by the column in the second matrix. So what I'm going to do is multiply this row by this column, and then for the second row in my answer matrix, I'm going to multiply this second row by this column. So let's see how that looks. I know my answer is going to be a 2 by 1. So I'm going to start my matrix so that I have 2 rows. Our first step is to take this row and multiply by this column. So each value that's in the same spot gets multiplied together. So the 3 and the 7 are in the same spot. So 3 times 7 goes in that first spot, plus, now the second numbers are going to get multiplied together. 1 times 8. And then we'll do the same thing for the last numbers. 5 times 9. We're going to do the same thing for that second row, except here we're going to do 4 times 7 plus 2 times 8 plus 6 times 9. So you can see that each of those values in the first, second, or third position in each row gets multiplied the value in that position in the column. So from here, it's just simplifying. In that first row here, we have 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 times 8 is 8, plus 9 times 5 is 45. In the second row, 4 times 7 is 28, plus 2 times 8 is 16, plus 6 times 9 is 54. So when we simplify and we just add them up, we're going to get 74 on the top and 98 on the bottom. So our answer is a 2 by 1 matrix, so we're feeling pretty good about that. So let's try one that doesn't just have 1 column in that second matrix. Here I have a 2 by 2 matrix for my first matrix, and I also have a 2 by 2 for the second matrix. So when we look at it, we know that they're going to be able to be multiplied together because our column number in my first matrix matches my row number in my second matrix. So my answer is going to have to be a 2 by 2. So when I think about how this is going to work and how I'm going to need to multiply, I set up a new matrix in my head and I say, okay, well, what makes sense to go in this first spot here? Well, if it's the first row and the first column, then it would make sense for me to multiply the first row by the first column. The same way we did in the other problem. Multiply those values and then add up the products. So in this bottom spot here, that's going to be my second row but it's still my first column. So that'll be the second row times the first column. And I'm sure you're kind of picking up a pattern here. We're going to do the same idea for the other two spots. I'm still in, for this problem, in my first row, but now I'm over to my second column. So I would multiply those two together. And then the last one, we are down to our second row and second column. And you can do this for any size matrices. As long as you're able to multiply them together, you can kind of map it out for yourself and think, what is the spot in the matrix that I'm looking for? Multiply that row by that column. So for this one, let's try to move this down to the bottom so we have some space. All right, but that's going to be our little cheat sheet. So I have it color-coded here. So I know it's going to be a 2 by 2. So I'll open my matrix. And in the first spot, it's the first row by the first column. So 2 times 6 plus 3 times -1. First row, first column. Okay, so if I'm thinking about those little lines here, that's going to be my first space. So we'll do the same thing here. It's going to be my second row now times the first column. So my second row was 4 times 6, and then 1 times -1. All right, so that's those two spaces. And then we'll do the same thing over here for these next two spaces. Except we're going to work on, we're in the first row again. So I have my 2 and my 3. And I'm going to multiply that by now that second column, which is 5 and -2. All right, now look again. I have my second row, 4 and 1, but I still have that second column, 5 by -2. So from here, it's really just simplifying again, and I can say this is equal to 12 minus 3. 4 times 6 is 24, minus 1. We got 10 minus 6 over there, and we got 20 minus 2 for that one. So our final answer would be 12 minus 3 is 9, 24 minus 1 is 23, 10 minus 6 is 4, and 20 minus 2 is 18. So we wound up with a 2 by 2 matrix, and we're good to go.